Shri Vrindavan Dham ki, Shri Devi ki, Shrimati Purnasi Yoga Maya ki, Shrimati Tulasi Marani Vrinda Devi ki, Shri Mahadevi ki, Jagannath Baladevi Surya Devi, Sudasan Chakrachetra Dam Tatagopina ki, Nirvachan ki, Nrsimha Bhavan ki, Pravar Prahlad Maharaj ki, and Bhakti Vaishnavrinda ki, Samagata Bhaktivinoda ki, Shri Gaura Prem.
Hari Hari Bol. Gauranga, Hari Hari Hari. Gauranga. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sadhujatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Vinataranam Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tuse Nityanandam Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janavapataye Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali unto the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishto Vishnupad Paramahansa, Ashtatarashata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali unto the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Asto Tarasata, Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. and to Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata, Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta, Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I offer my Dandavat pranams to the lotus feet of all of my Sri Sri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga. And my Dandavat pranams to all of the Vaishnavas and all of the Vaishnavas. We're continuing with our reading of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 16, titled The Lord's Attempt to Go to Vrindavan. And yesterday we were continuing. Could you turn it up just slightly? Yesterday we were continuing to read about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's being asked the question by the residents of Kulinagram, what they should do now that they're leaving Jagannath Puri and now that they are going to be without the direct physical association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How should they live? What should be their main focus? What should they be doing? And Mahaprabhu again replied, as he had done the previous year, and he said, Prabhu Kahe, Vaishnava Seva, Nama Samkirtan, Dui Karo, Shigra Pave, Shri Krishna Charan. The Lord replied, you should engage yourself in the service of the servants of Krishna and always chant the holy name of Krishna. If you do these two things, you will very soon attain shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. So then, the inhabitants of Kulinagram said, Teho kahe ke Vaishnava kitar lakshan. So lakshan means symptoms, and ke means who. Who's a Vaishnava, and kitar lakshan, what are his symptoms? Then, tabe hasi kahe Prabhu jani tar man. Understanding his mind, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled and gave the following reply. So he's understanding the mind of his devotee who asked him that question. Then he said, Krishna nam nirantara jahara vadane se Vaishnava shreshta bhaja tahara charani. A person who is always chanting the holy name of the Lord is to be considered a first-class Vaishnava. And your duty is to serve his lotus feet. Yes. Vaishnava Shreshta means, Prabhupada's translating as first class. It means topmost amongst the Vaishnavas, Shreshta. And Bhaja Tahara Charani, your duty is to serve his lotus feet, who is doing what? Krishna Nam Nirantara, without any cessation, continuously chanting. Now in the purport, there's a very nice in-depth purport we're going to read here today and understand this topic. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that any Vaishnava who is constantly chanting the holy name of the Lord should be considered to have attained the second platform of Vaishnavism. Such a devotee is superior to a neophyte Vaishnava who has just learned to chant the holy name of the Lord. A neophyte devotee simply tries to chant the holy name, whereas the advanced devotee is accustomed to chanting and takes pleasure in it. Such an advanced devotee is called a Madhyam Bhagavat, which indicates that he has attained the intermediate stage between the neophyte and the perfect devotee. Generally, a devotee in the intermediate stage becomes a preacher. A neophyte devotee or an ordinary person should worship the Madhyam Bhagavat, who is a via medium. So in his Upadeshamrita, 5th verse, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Pranati Vish Cha Bhajantam Isham. This means that Madhyam Adhikari devotees should exchange obeisances between themselves. Pranati Vish means obeisances, pranam. So the word nirantara, meaning without cessation, or continuously or constantly, the word nirantara, without cessation, continuously, constantly, is very important in this verse. The word antara means interval. So if one has desires other than a desire to perform devotional service, in other words, if one sometimes engages in devotional service and then sometimes strives for sense gratification, his service will be interrupted. A pure devotee, therefore, should have no desire other than to serve Krishna. He should be above fruitive activity and above speculative knowledge. So in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Anya vilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktir uttama. You're knowing this verse. Good. So, this is the platform of pure devotional service. One should not be motivated by fruitive activity or mental speculation, but he should simply serve Krishna favorably. That is first-class devotion. Now, another meaning of antara is this body. The body is an impediment to self-realization because it is always engaged in sense gratification. So similarly, antara means money also. If money is not used in Krishna's service, it is also an impediment. Antara also means janata. That means people in general. People in general. The association of ordinary persons may destroy the principles of devotional service. And similarly, antara may mean greed. Greed to acquire more money or to enjoy more sense gratification. And finally, the word antara may also mean atheistic ideas. Just see how this one word, antara, is like 5 different meanings, completely different. Huh? Yes. And finally, the word antara may also mean atheistic ideas, by which one considers the temple deity to be made of stone, wood, or gold. All of these are impediments. The deity in the temple is not material. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And similarly, considering the spiritual master an ordinary human being, Gurushu Nara Mati, this is also an impediment. Nor should one consider a Vaishnava a member of a particular caste or nation. Nor should a Vaishnava be considered material. Sharanamrita should not be considered ordinary drinking water. And the holy name of the Lord should not be considered an ordinary sound vibration. Nor should one look on Lord Krishna as an ordinary human being, for he is the origin of all Vishnu Tattvas. Nor should one regard the Supreme Lord as a demigod. Intermingling the spiritual with the material causes one to look on transcendence as material and the mundane as spiritual. I'm reading that again. Intermingling the spiritual with the material causes one to look on transcendence as material and the mundane as spiritual, by intermingling. This is all due to a poor fund of knowledge. So one should not consider Lord Vishnu and things related to him as being different. All this is offensive. Now in the Bhakti Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami writes, Namaikam yasya vachi smarana patagatam ityado deha dravanadi nimittaka pashanda shabdena chadasha aparadha lakshyante pashanda mayatvat tesham. Quote, in the verse beginning Namaikam yasya, we find the word pashanda, godlessness. The word literally indicates misuse of one's body or one's property. Pashanda. But in that verse, it implies the 10 offenses against the Lord's holy name, since each of these leads to such godless behavior. The Mayavadis look on Vishnu and Vaishnavas imperfectly due to their poor fund of knowledge, and this is condemned. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, the intermediate Vaishnava is described as follows. So here's the famous definition verse, quote, from 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 46. Ishvare tad adineshu. This is the definition verse of a madhyam adhikari. Ishvare tad adineshu balisheshu dvisatsucha prema maitri kripa peksha yak karoti samadhyama. The intermediate Vaishnava, he has to love God and make friends with the devotees, instruct the innocent, and reject jealous people. These are the 4 functions of the Vaishnava in the intermediate stage. Then in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 22, verse 64, Sri Sanatana Goswami is taught by Mahaprabhu. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Jiva Ki Jai Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Prabhuji, can you bring me a cup of water?
Yes.
So, in the Madhya Lila, chapter 22, that's Sanatana Siksha, verse 64, Sri Sanatana Goswami is taught by Mahaprabhu, Shraddhavan Janahoy Bhakti Adhikari Uttam Madhyam Kanishta Shraddha Anusari. One who is faithful is a proper candidate for devotional service. So here the word Shraddhavan, having Shraddha. Bhakti Adhikari. That person who possesses Shraddha, he is a candidate for Bhakti. No. Yes, so Uttam Madhyam Kanishta Shraddha Anusari. In terms of one's degree of faith in devotional service, in that measurement, how much Shraddha, then one is a first class, second class, or neophyte Vaishnava. So the division here given by Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami in determining the distinction between each level, third, second, and first class. And the distinction is the development of their Shraddha. It's the main principle. Then he says, Shastra yukti nahi jane dridha shraddhavan, madhyam adhikari se mahabhagyavan. So, Shastra yukti nahi jane. One who has attained the intermediate stage, the madhyam stage, he is not very advanced in shastric knowledge. But Shraddhavan, he has firm faith in the Lord. So, such a person is very fortunate to be situated on the intermediate platform. Bhagyavan, Mahabhagyavan means very fortunate. Bhagya. Bhagya means fortune. So Mahabhagyavan means very fortunate. So here, Shastra Yukti Nahi Jani. Dridha. So he may not be that well versed in the Shastras, but he has firm faith. So that's the determining factor. Then the next line is from Madhya Lila 22. The next line is Madhya Lila 22:71. So this is like verse 67 that we just read. And then 71, there's just one line of this verse. It says, Rati Prem Taratamye Bhakta Taratam. That means attraction and love for God, attraction and love for God are the ultimate goal of devotional service. The degrees of such attraction and love, those degrees distinguish the different stages of devotion, namely neophyte, intermediate, and perfectional. So Rati Prem Taratamye Bhakta Taratam. This is the different degrees. An intermediate devotee is greatly attracted to chanting the holy name. And by chanting, he is elevated to the platform of love. If one chants the holy name of the Lord with great attachment, then he can understand his position as an eternal servant of the spiritual master and of other Vaishnavas and Krishna himself. That is, if one chants the holy name of the Lord with great attachment, then he can understand his position as an eternal servant of the spiritual master, other Vaishnavas, and Krishna himself. So thus, the intermediate Vaishnava considers himself to be Krishna Das, Krishna's servant. He therefore preaches Krishna consciousness to innocent neophytes. And he stresses the importance of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. An intermediate devotee can identify the non-devotee, or he can also identify the motivated devotee. He can identify them, the intermediate devotee, the Madhyam Adhikari can identify the non-devotee or the motivated devotee. The motivated devotee or the non-devotee are on the material plane, material platform, and they are called Prakrita. The intermediate devotee does not mix with such materialistic people. However, he understands that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everything related to him are on the same transcendental platform. Actually, none of them are mundane. So, the intermediate devotee, this is one of his qualities. He can identify, you see. Ishvare tad adineshu Palisheshu, Drisatsucha, 4 different categories. And then he correspondingly interrelates with those 4 categories in a particular way. Prema, Maitri, friendship, Kripa, mercy, and Apeksha, neglect, ignoring. So, the intermediate devotee, the madhyam, can identify the non-devotee or the motivated devotee. So, what is a motivated devotee in this context?
One who's devotion is not constant and unmixed, so they might take time out for sense gratification or for cultivating mundane knowledge or yoga or whatever it is that distracts them from pure unmotivated devotional service.
Yeah. He's telling here also that they're both the motivated devotee and the non-devotee. But they're both on the material platform, meaning prakrita. Prakrita.
So I do have one question.
Yeah.
So in the 4 categories, giving one's love to God, making friendship with devotees, and
by the way,
instructing
the first category, prema, is not just to God, but to the spiritual master and pure devotees. Yeah.
So that actually leads into my question. So Maitri, making friendship. So in that, he then sees those 3 categories of devotee, and is the
Maitri means friendship.
Right. But is the one who is Kanishta, they sometimes are considered also Prakrita devotees, motivated devotees. So that means that they might still have friendship, but it's of a different nature than they would have with their fellow Madhyam, and certainly, as you said, praying can even be reserved for the Mahabhagavat along with God. So it's a different category than the innocent, who are just uninformed at all.
Well, the innocent are not yet devotees. The innocent are the general people, but he feels mercifulness towards them. He feels impelled to help them, to enlighten them, like the description of the ancient sages who would wander everywhere in those other yugas and so forth, by foot and visiting the house of a householder who's milking his cow early in the morning. And what was he coming there for? Well, not just to get some milk to maintain his body, but to have an opportunity to discuss with them and share spiritual knowledge with them. So it's always been that way from the beginning of the universe, that those who are themselves, their shraddha is highly developed, and they're trying 24 hours a day to be completely absorbed in bhakti, hearing, chanting, remembering, and so forth.
But to clarify, so the Madhyam Adhikari devotee, he may even exhibit friendship with those that are materialistic devotees, but he would choose to associate with his fellow Madhyam.
Well, we have to determine what is the nature of the friendship that he shows. Because you're saying that he also exhibits friendship with even non-devotees like that.
Not non-devotees, but just making it practical. Let's say there are householders who live in the world, and they keep jobs, and they will give donations. They might follow the 4 regular principles, even chant 16 rounds, but they also will engage in sensual activities, even if it's just something as light as, let's say, television watching or something like that. But they would be considered, because they're not constant, then you would consider them Prakrita bhaktas, but the Madhyam would still exhibit friendship with him, but he would choose to associate with his fellow Madhyam bhaktas who are constantly engaged. Is that a kind of clarity?
Actually, he's always desiring to have the great good fortune of interacting with those Vaishnavas who are higher than himself. This is the nature of a Madhyam. He wants to have actual sadhu sangha. This is what he craves. He wants to hear from elevated Vaishnavas who are in a position superior to himself. That's one of the main principles of sadhu sangha given by Rupa Goswami, that Swajatiya ashaye snidhe sadhu sangha sutovare. So Swajatiya, has the same Ishtadeva, than as you do, Swajatiya, the same line, Guru Parampara and so forth. And he has affection for you. He has affection for you. And then Svatovare means he is in a superior position to yourself. That is the genuine sadhu sangha. And in absence of that, then the Madhyam Bhakta will be looking for other Madhyam Bhaktas, but who are absorbed and who are not maintaining so many material attachments in this world and enfeebling their bhakti, and in that way. He's looking for those who are kind of like on a similar level to himself. I would say that a Madhyam Bhakta is looking for those who are coming up to the standard of Anyabhilashita Shunyam, that their bhakti is becoming devoid of any other material motivations, and they're not influenced jnana, karmadi, jnana, yoga, any of these things, but bhakti, pure bhakti. So what was the question exactly?
No, because you were saying that one should not associate with either non-devotees or materialistic.
Well, here is Prabhupada is saying the intermediate devotee does not mix with such materialistic people. And he just mentioned in that category, materialistic means prakrita, they're on the material platform, right? So the motivated devotee and also the non-devotees are on the material platform. And the intermediate devotee does not mix with such materialistic people. Now, it doesn't mean that he won't interact with them at all, but he is not interested to cultivate close relationships with them, because Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that Sangha, when you say that a person should avoid the association of non-devotees, like in Upadeshamrita, in both verses of the 6 things that are favorable for bhakti and 6 things that are unfavorable. In both, the principle of association is strongly emphasized in both verses. So, Jana Sangascha Lolyamcha. Jana Sangha means Sangha with Jana, the regular people. And a devotee who is serious about becoming absorbed in Shuddha Bhakti, he will immediately feel that this will not help me. This is to be avoided. There's these types of persons and their mentality and so forth. But one important thing is that it doesn't mean that there won't be any conversing, but what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained is that he never shares his inner heart. He does not reveal that with such persons. That is only to be shared with similar-minded Vaishnavas. So in that sense, he's not actually taking their association, but to the contrary, he does try to inject within them spiritual topics, spiritual thoughts, and help them to come off the material platform. But he doesn't intimately associate with them and reveal his heart, or he doesn't also hear them revealing all of their materialistic desires and all of this. So that's something to be careful about. So, yes, so however, even though the intermediate devotee does not mix with such materialistic people, he understands that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and everything related to him are on the same transcendental platform. So actually none of them are mundane. Now, the following year, the inhabitants of Kulinagram, again, this is the third time, they again asked the Lord the same question. And hearing this question, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again taught them about the different types of Vaishnavas. And Mahaprabhu said, Jahara darshane muke aise Krishna nam tahare jani hatumi Vaishnava pradhan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, a first-class Vaishnava is he whose very presence makes others chant the holy name of Krishna. So now, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if an observer immediately remembers the holy name of Krishna upon seeing a Vaishnava, that Vaishnava should be considered a Mahabhagavata, a first-class devotee. And such a Vaishnava is always aware of his Krishna-conscious duty, and he is enlightened in self-realization. He is always in love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and this love is without adulteration. Because of this love, he is always awake to transcendental realization. Because he knows that Krishna consciousness is the basis of knowledge and the basis of action, he sees everything as being connected with Krishna. Such a person is able to chant the holy name of Krishna perfectly. Such a Mahabhagavat Vaishnava has the transcendental eyes to see who is sleeping under the spell of Maya, and he engages himself in awakening the sleeping conditioned beings by spreading the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. He opens eyes that are closed by forgetfulness of Krishna. Thus, the living entity is liberated from the dullness of material energy and is engaged fully in the service of the Lord. The Madhyamadikari Vaishnava can awaken others to Krishna consciousness and engage them in duties whereby they can advance. So it is therefore said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 6, Lohake javat sparshi hema nahi kore, tavat sparshamani keho chinite na pari. One cannot understand the value of touchstone until it turns into gold. It turns iron into gold. Then you can understand, oh, this is a touchstone. So one should judge by action and not by promises. A Mahabhagavat can turn a living entity from abominable material life to the Lord's service. This is the test of a Mahabhagavata. Although preaching is not meant for a Mahabhagavata can descend to the platform of Madhyam Bhagavat just to convert others to Vaishnavism. Actually, a Mahabhagavat is fit to spread Krishna consciousness, but he does not distinguish where Krishna consciousness should be spread from where it should not. He thinks that everyone is competent to accept Krishna consciousness if the chance is provided. A neophyte And an intermediate devotee should always be eager to hear the Mahabhagavat and to serve him in every respect. The neophyte and the intermediate devotees can gradually rise to the platform of Uttam Adhikari and become first-class devotees. The symptoms of a first-class devotee are given in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter. Sarva bhuteshu yah pashyed Bhagavad bhavam atmanaha Bhutani Bhagavat Yatman Yesha Bhagavat Uttama. So, the most advanced devotee sees within everything the soul of all souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And consequently, he sees systematically everything in relation to the Supreme Lord. And he understands that everything that exists is eternally situated within the Lord. So, when teaching Sanatana Goswami, the Lord further said, Shastra yuktye sunipun dridha shraddha jar uttam adhikari se taraye samsar. He said, one who is expert in the Vedic literature and who has full faith in the Supreme Lord is an uttam adhikari, a first-class Vaishnava, a topmost Vaishnava who can deliver the whole world and turn every one to Krishna consciousness. So with great love and affection, the Mahabhagavat observes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, devotional service, and the devotee. He observes nothing beyond Krishna. He observes nothing beyond Krishna, Krishna consciousness, and Krishna's devotees. He observes nothing beyond them. The Mahabhagavat knows that everyone is engaged in the Lord's service in different ways. So he therefore descends to the middle platform to elevate everyone to the Krishna conscious position. That's the purport. Yeah. So in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught the distinctions between different types of Vaishnavas, the Vaishnava, the Vaishnavatara, and the Vaishnavattama. The three different levels. Vaishnava, Vaishnavatara, and Vaishnavattama. And he thus successively explained all the symptoms of a Vaishnava to the inhabitants of Kulinagram. So now we heard this from Gurudev in his Rath Yatra book, but now we've read the actual section. So in this way, we'll continue tomorrow, where all the Vaishnavas finally went and returned to Bengal. Gaur Premanandi. Jai Vansha Kalpaturuvasya Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patikanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavi Namo